I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit he prunes, so that it will be even more fruitful. You are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Remain in me, and I will remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. If a man remains in me and I in him, he will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If anyone does not remain in me, he is like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire and burned. If you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be given you. This is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. This is the word of the Lord.
Thank you very much, Bev, particularly as you were not given brilliant notice about the change of reading. Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Ethan. We're on a different mic now, so that's fantastic. Thanks again, Bev. So here we are in John, and I mentioned the I am statements at the start of our service. This is actually the final I am statement that Jesus makes in John. I am the true vine. And the example he's giving is around the flow of life, isn't it? And we read that the life that comes from Jesus the vine doesn't kind of get stuck somewhere in the branches, or at least that's not the idea. The idea is that the life flows through the vine, through us, and bears fruit. So the life we receive is also a life that is to bless. Fruit definitely gets eaten, and when I look at some of that colouring at the back with all those bright colours, it definitely makes me want to eat it. It's an incredibly, what we might say, missional analogy that we are blessed to also bless. And yet, the words remain in me are so central to this passage. No branch can bear fruit by itself. And so a little bit like as I described confession a while ago, this analogy that Jesus uses isn't supposed to be shame-inducing, isn't supposed to be, well, can't you work harder? Can't you do better? It's a reminder that we can trust the source of our life, and that in that place of trust, we have all we need for ourselves, and we have all we need for the purposes that God gives us. We become more fully ourselves when we find our purpose, rather than feel very guilty and like we're not doing enough. We're called to trust in the reality of that promised life, its value, including the worth sometimes of staying connected, of holding on almost sometimes for that life to flow and that fruit to come, whatever that may take. And there's an analogy here of pruning, the pruning of the branches. That can be quite an uncomfortable process, but trust creates a strong bond between us and the source of our life. Jesus begins, I am the true vine. And the words used here, their translation, denotes a real genuineness, an authenticity. I'm sure we've all met many people who've made very grand claims and then they're found wanting. Jesus reassures us here in the face of often being let down perhaps by other people. I am the true vine. And this part of John is sometimes referred to as the farewell discourse. So Jesus is nearing the time of his death. He's been with his followers for quite some time. And he knows that the disciples are going to experience upheaval, testing, and that wonderful life-giving flow is perhaps going to feel a little bit more harder to grasp, a little bit more costly, as there's so much upheaval as Jesus suffers what he does. And that farewell discourse begins with Jesus' words in John 14. Do not let your hearts be troubled. trust in God, trust also in me. And then the section of John finishes, in this world you will have trouble, but be brave. I, Jesus, have defeated the world. And Jesus draws on this bigger perspective in the face of all of this seeming defeat that the disciples are going to be confronted with, as it seems that Jesus has been beaten, if you like, by the forces around him. And that's, of course, why the cross and the resurrection is such a wonderful symbol of our faith, because that was far from the case. And that's what Jesus is calling us to see here. But we see as well in verse 5, apart from me, you can do nothing. We're alerted to see that it's very possible to be very successful in certain terms and yet do nothing of eternal value, nothing that really buys in to that wonderful act of Jesus, the wonderful victory and the wonderful reality of the Easter story. But connected, this is to my Father's glory, says Jesus. That's in verse 8. A couple of years ago now, I attended it's kind of a bit of an accident really, but I ended up at this carol service of another church. I was a curate at the time, but it was the World Cup final. So my church had the foresight not to do a carol service on the same day as the World Cup final, but not every church did. So anyway, I'm sorry if you didn't. Oh dear, I should have checked that first. But actually, it's okay, because that's just one perspective, because I did go to a carol service on the same day as the World Cup final, and it was amazing. And actually, I wouldn't have been able to go had my church made a different decision. So anyway, the leader there was called Mike. I've heard him speak a fair few times now, but I heard him on that night, and we got to know him a little bit, and we attended the church a few times, just when there was an opportunity to. And towards the end of my time in Warrington, Mike retired. And he'd obviously in his 60s at the time, and I was really anticipating actually the last words that he might bring to the congregation on this his retiring day. And I'd seen Mike speak on a fair few occasions to smaller gatherings, and also to really quite charismatic or larger settings, and I was thinking, what on earth is he going to say? But as it turns out, on this occasion, it wasn't a kind of grand sort of maybe dramatic or charismatic big preach. What was most profound, I found, on the occasion of Mike's retirement was the matter-of-fact way, not monotone, but just the stated way he described the connected life. He said things like, well, there's no other reason to be here than to know and serve God on earth and then go and be with him forever. It was just so normal in the way that he described it, and that really, really stayed with me. And I thought, God, may that be ever so more of me. I saw a man that night that could have said so many things and could have been so sort of charismatic, as I say, or so impressive in the way he delivered. But I saw a man who really believes that Jesus is the true vine, who doesn't bother about kind of all that stuff around the edges, but just wants Jesus to be the source of his life. And that was the word that he chose to leave us with. And so in verse 4, 5 and 7, Jesus repeats, remain in me as I also remain in you. And I truly believe that as we choose to remain connected, we don't find the vine wanting, but we find it living and active, safe for us, strong for us. Even when pruning comes, even when hard times comes, the Good Shepherd and the true vine never disappoints. And so the application here is deeper actually than simply saying to pray, to read our Bible. Other disciplines are never a waste and always important. But I want to suggest to us today that it's deeper than that. The daily psalm this morning happened to be Psalm 25, and that begins, to you, O Lord, I lift up my soul. It's deeper than just a moment of prayer or getting our Bible out because we feel we should. There's a real conviction and a surrender in those words, a real trust and willingness to bring our lives truly before God as they are and to receive him into them. And in this way, our prayer becomes much more of a dialogue, I think. Sometimes there's not much to say, but we just sit and know and receive. And it becomes a place to enter a wide space, a space to see things perhaps a little bit differently, to realign what's really on our minds and to see something deeper. Our faith remains more vibrant perhaps. There's less of that I should get my Bible out, or I should have a daily time of prayer. And so as I come to close on this particular image of the true vine, for some of us, where are our fresh opportunities for bearing fruit? If we feel that sense of connection, where might it have got a little bit stuck in a branch and we're called to step out and to bear fruit for others? Who is in our spheres of connection? Are we ready to give an answer for the hope that is within us, the hope of our faith? Maybe for some of us, it's about that connection, about that level of trust, and just sitting before God, allowing him to prove to us again that he is the one who never disappoints, that he is the true vine. And as we remain in him, may we become ever more those who can joyfully and loyally reveal God's presence, often without realising it, because trust is infectious, but also may we be those who declare that risen life too. Amen.